Okay guys, so let's look at the first question. You're migrating workloads to the cloud and the goal of the migration is to serve customers worldwide as quickly as possible. According to the local regulations, certain data is required to be stored in specific geographic areas and it can be served worldwide. You need to design the architecture and deployment for your workloads. What should you do? The key line over here is that data needs to be stored in a specific geographic area and it needs to be served worldwide. So straight away you know that it cannot be a private cloud provider because private cloud provider will not be serving the general public. And second thing that you need to know this public cloud provider that is active only in the required geographic area, then how are you going to serve the customers worldwide? So this is also ruled out. So we are only left with option C. If you just look at the explanation here that I've given, it will be more than obvious to you. Look at the second question. Your organization needs a large amount of computing power within the next 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, the need for additional resources will end. Which is the most cost-effective approach? The key thing here is you only need the extra computing power for 2 weeks. And once that is done, you don't need it anymore. So definitely you're not going to purchase physical hardware. These two options are ruled out because they are for long-term investment and you cannot dispose them off quickly. Next, you would not use a committed use discount for sure because you just need it for 2 weeks. Committed use discounts are for prolonged periods. So the right option is option C. Let's just look at the explanation I have given here and it will be more than obvious to you. Now let's look at question number 3. Your organization needs to plan its cloud infrastructure expenditures. Which should your organization do? Review your cloud resources frequently because costs change often based on use. This is okay. This option is okay. Let's see what the other options are. Option B says review cloud resources costs annually as a part of planning your organization's overall budget. Now, it's not a good idea to set aside the costs and reviewing it annually. You have to review it in a more frequent way. So this does not sound like a good option. But let's see. Let's just put that aside and see option C. If your organization uses only cloud resources, infrastructure costs are no longer part of your overall budget is wrong. D. Involve fewer people in cloud infrastructure resource planning than your organization did for on-premises resource planning. So it's maybe true that on-premises resource planning will require more people, but it doesn't in any way help to answer this question in a positive way. They're asking your organization needs to plan its cloud infrastructure expenditures. So this is also ruled out. So the only good option we have is option A. Review your costs frequently. Let's look at question number 4. The operating systems of some of your organization's virtual machines may have security vulnerabilities. How can your organization most effectively identify these virtual machines that do not have the latest security update? So if you just glance at these options, you have 2 security services listed here. One is the security command center and the other one is the compliance report manager. The security command center mostly deals with security vulnerabilities, so it seems to be the more closer option. And the compliance report manager, it deals with regulatory audits and so on. So if we just go through the options, use the security command center to identify virtual machines running on a vulnerable disk. This seems okay. Let's see the other options. Let's not be in a hurry to take this one. B. Use the compliance report manager to identify the recent PCI audit. So this is a little vague. This is not the best way to do it. PCI is not directly related to security vulnerability. It is more of compliance requirement. And then let's look at option C. Security command center to identify virtual machines started more than 2 weeks ago. Now there is no time horizon specified in this question if you see. So this is not the best answer, but just let's put it aside so that we can eliminate few more options in the next go. Then D. View the compliance reports manager to identify and download the recent SOC audit. This again is not the right answer. So among option A and C, option A is better. So let's just go with that. Let's take a quick look at option the 4th question's explanation. Pause the video if you would like to go into the details. The next question says you're currently managing workloads running on Windows Server for which your company owns the licenses. Your workloads are only needed during working hours, which allows you to shut down the instances during the weekend. Your Windows Server licenses are up for renewal in a month and you want to go with optimization of your license costs. What should you do? So pause the video if you would like to try this out. The first option says renew your licenses for an additional period of 3 years. Negotiate a cost reduction with your current hosting provider, wherein infrastructure cost is reduced when workloads are not in use. And option D says renew your license for an additional period of 2 years. Negotiate a cost reduction by committing to an automatic renewal of license at the end of 2-year period. And option C says bring your own license model. This is definitely not going to work because your licenses are up for renewal in a month. So the only good option here is migrate your workloads to Compute Engine with a pay-as-you-go model. This will also simplify your requirement of handling license costs. Okay, now let's take a quick look at the explanation for answer 5. Pause the video if you would like to. Moving on to question number 6. Your organization runs distributed applications in a Compute Engine virtual machines. Your organization needs redundancy but also needs extremely fast communication, less than 10 milliseconds between your parts of the application. Okay, where should your organization locate its virtual machine? So they're trying to build an application in which different components are taking virtual machines, and the communication between the virtual machines should be extremely fast. At the same time, they want a redundancy so that if one VM goes down, there's another VM to take care. So here it's mostly, it's a very simple one. Option B, in different zones in a single region. This is the most appropriate answer for this one. The remaining options like single zone, single region, there is no redundancy here. Multiple regions, one zone, latency is the problem. Multiple regions and one zone, then even then the latency is a problem. So clearly it's option B. Let's just look at the explanation. So since it guarantees 10 milliseconds latency, we have to go with option B. We also giving the redundancy of multiple zones within the region, as availability zones are connected with high-speed links. That's a very fundamental concept. And if it was D, then it doesn't guarantee the speed. Now coming to question 7, an organization decides to migrate their on-premises environment to the cloud. They need to determine which resource component still need to be assigned ownership. Which two functions does the cloud provider own? So as you know, in cloud there is this concept of shared responsibility model, and part of the cloud is managed by the cloud provider and part of the security and part of the responsibilities lies with the customer. So clearly hardware requirements, hardware capacity planning, these are all definitely not a part of the customer. There's something that the cloud provider has to take care. In infrastructure architecture, that is something your internal architect will decide. Infrastructure deployment automation, you might use something like a Terraform or something like an Ansible or something, some other scripting or any cloud related scripts. So that's definitely in your control. Fixing application security issues, this is again a shared part. The hardware related security issues will be taken care of by CSP, and the application and the data security that needs to be handled by you. Just let's look at the explanation. Pause the video if you would like to. And explanation 80 is clearly infrastructure related requirements are the responsibility of the cloud service provider. Okay, now let's look at question number 8. You're the program manager with a software as a service company that offers rendering software for animation studios. Your team needs the ability to allow scenes to be scheduled at will and be interrupted at any time to restart later. This indicates some kind of a batch processing. Any individual scene takes less than 12 hours to complete, and there is no SLA for completion of all the scenes. Results will be stored in a cloud storage bucket, and the compute resources are not bound to any single region. This software needs to run on GCP in a cost optimized way. What do you do? So pause the video if you would like to try this one. So option A says deploy the application on Compute Engine using preemptible instances. This sounds plausible, but let's look at the other options also. B says develop the application so it can run in an unmanaged instance group. Now, at least if you're going with a managed instance group, I can understand you're going to use auto scaling to scale down when resources are not needed, but unmanaged instance group cannot auto scale. So this one I'm definitely ruling out. And it doesn't help to address these 3 criteria also: SLA, cost. So all this stuff is not helping. Let's look at option C. Reserve the minimum number of compute instances. This is definitely ruled out. You're not going to reserve when you want to do a cost optimized way unless you know that you're going to use it for extended periods of time. But look at this, it can be interrupted at any time and restarted. So definitely this is not a committed use. Maybe for business critical applications you can go with this one, but option C is definitely ruled out. Option D says start more instances than it's required. Again, if you have a feature like auto scaling, why would you need to start more instances than needed? This is also ruled out. So among the options available, clearly option A is the best one. This is just the explanation for question number 8. Please pause the video if you would like to go through it. Okay, let's look at question number 9 now. Your manager wants to restrict communication for all virtual machines with the internet, with resources in another network, or with resources outside the compute engine. It is expected that different teams will create new folders and projects in the near future. How would you restrict all virtual machines from having an external IP? Now, there are 4 options here, all of which are indicating, first 3 are indicating at some kind of an organization policy, and the last one is through mutual agreement. This is definitely we can rule out. Clearly, option D can be ruled out. This is not a best practice. Then we are talking about defining organization policy at the root node. Then organization policy on all existing folders to define the constraint at folder level. Then there is this option of define organization policy on all existing projects. So we have this hierarchy, root node. Below that, you'll have multiple folders, and below the folders, you'll have multiple projects. That is the organization. There is a resource hierarchy in GCP. Now, it's clearly mentioned that the new teams will be forming and creating more projects and folders. So ideally, if you're applying some kind of a policy at the project or folder level, then it's going to be difficult to maintain. But let's say you apply it at the organization level, then you can be sure that even if a new project or new folder is created, then the policy will continue to permeate. A quick look at the explanation for answer question number 9. And let's go to the question number 10. Your multinational organization has servers running mission critical workloads on its premises around the world. You want to be able to manage these workloads in a consistent and central way, and you want to stop managing infrastructure. What should you do? So, first thing is, they're talking about you want to be able to manage these workloads consistently and centrally, and you want to stop managing the infrastructure. So, stop managing the infrastructure means option C and option D are ruled out. Option B is also ruled out. Actually, central office, whether you move to central office or a remote office, if you're managing infrastructure, then it's a violation of this question. So only option A makes sense here. A quick look at the explanation. All right, I think that's it for this part. Thank you for watching.